Hi. So you have 15 minutes. Keep an eye open for your chat box. I will chat you when you have last question, okay?
Yes. Hi,
Amazing.
Castille. Nice to meet
Castille,
you.
this is Kristen from Belgium.
Me too.
Yeah, this is Christine from Belgium, like she said. I work for a newspaper over there. Well, first of all, congratulations. I haven't seen the movie yet because I guess they're not screening it yet. So it's all going to be a big surprise for me. So can you talk a little bit about, how you got to direct the third one, the fourth one, and then there's a prequel and a sequel. So you have 4 projects coming up, right? So if you can talk.
So I directed a movie called Fear of Rain that I met the producers of After through that, and they'd seen that. And so I got the interview and immediately read the books and watched a ton of romances and sort of came up with ideas about the intimate nature based on that. And I think there was also a bit of like, can I do this? Yeah, I can figure out how to do this, and like, I don't know if they're going to see this, but like not padding your resume, but like, are you comfortable with intimate scenes? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Totally can do that. And like, I learned how to do them on the job. But yeah, I think that was kind of how things came about. And I sort of fell in love with the story and like the messiness of it and the darkness of it. And of course, we put ourselves in Tessa's shoes as we read it. And so you fall in love with Hardin. And I feel like I relate to that because, I'm always doing that sort of thing. So it all felt very close and kind of exactly what I would have wanted to watch when I was, well, maybe even now, but certainly when I was like 16 to 24. So I guess that's where it all began for me.
Yeah. And intimacy is something that I definitely want to talk about during this interview, but I wanted to go back to, where this all started because I was doing research, and I guess this is a story that was published on Wattpad. Mm-hmm. And for people that don't know what it is, it's like a place where writers publish fan fiction. Is that right? And so you've heard about it before?
Yeah, I heard about it. Wattpad's a pretty big kind of self-publishing machine. And they've had a lot of really great properties recently. I mean, I kind of wish I had like the discipline to write a novel and put it out on Wattpad. I think it'd be really fun. And yeah, I mean, it's like, to me, what's really great about it is the interactive nature with the viewers or the readers rather. That instant feedback loop, I think, is really cool and is what gets people engaged.
And how hands-on is Anna? I think that's the name of the writer. How hands-on is she when it comes to directing, or like working on these movies with you?
Yeah, I worked a lot with her in development, and certainly worked a lot with her in the sense that I used the book as the Bible for it. So I was constantly consulting the book throughout production. But yeah, I mostly worked with her in development, and it was really important to me to kind of get the essence of her book and what she was going for across to the readership, because I think, she knows this audience better than anyone, and she kind of created this thing that became bigger than life. So I think she's brilliant at what she does.
And speaking about this audience, obviously the fans are a very big part of this successful franchise. So what has that been like for you as someone who came on to the franchise, not late, but, for the third movie? What was that like?
Yeah, I think that's the most daunting part of it was, I felt very sure of and confident in my vision for the movies. And in my understanding of the relationship based on the book. But when the news was leaked about me directing, there was, pandemonium with them. Like, I've never experienced anything like that. And I didn't realize how big it was until that happened. And that was daunting. But what's really great is like the fans are really, not only are they supportive, but they also will tell you, this is what we want. And like to have that, in addition to the source material, but like there are things in the material that they don't like. And so it's important to know that, because we have the opportunity to kind of, do a bit of revisionist history here. And also modernizing things. The books were written 6 years ago, or now it's like 7 years ago. So that's a different era than like the post Me Too era. So it did have to be updated for that, and with the fans' consideration in mind.
And how does that work, like that interaction with the fans, that they're able to possibly change things? I just wonder how that works.
I mean, they message me all the time on social media, and I try to put myself in their shoes all the time, I guess, too, because I'm like, I can't imagine actually having input on, what you see on the big screen when you're not directing it. But they really do. They give me really good ideas, and they just message me. I mean, constantly. I get like hundreds of messages a day between Twitter and Instagram and all of that. And I try to only respond to the positive ones. I mean, like I wasn't a huge social media user before. I just kind of picked it up because I know it's important to them to feel seen and heard. And it also does help the movies to talk with them and understand what they like and don't like. But it's a bit overwhelming,
I bet, and it's very easy to focus on the negative ones. I speak from, experience.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it's weird. People don't realize that like you may get 100 great, I love yous, and like one bad one, and that one bad one will carry you through the whole day.
Exactly. And then you go to Bulgaria to shoot this movie. And I guess it was in the middle of this pandemic.
Mhm.
So what was that like? And then it was supposed to be shooting somewhere else, right? It wasn't always going to be in Bulgaria. Is that true?
Yeah, it was when I was hired, it was going to be in Atlanta, which would have been really exciting because I don't live far from there. So I was like expecting to be able to go back and forth and see my family. And that just was like not at all the reality. They're like, well, 6 weeks out, they told me you're going to Bulgaria for 5 months. And I'd shot one movie there before, so I was familiar with it. And I love Bulgaria. And I love the crews there. And you do get, and I think the movie is better for it being in Bulgaria, honestly. I think the scope of what we were able to accomplish was much greater, but making the movie itself was more difficult because we were all confined to one floor of a hotel, and it was a very nice hotel, so I'm not complaining. But and it did actually, like, we became such good friends, kind of like a little family there because of it. But being stuck in a hotel room for 5 months becomes quite isolating. And like, we literally were not allowed to leave at all, like not on weekends ever. We could not leave. So I heard like Riverdale did the same thing, and someone referred to it as a prison. And of course it's a very nice prison. It's not prison at all. But anytime, like I'm a homebody too. But like when you go to, I just want to take a walk around the park, and people are like, yeah, no, or we'll supervise you while you do it. You're like, like all you want to do then is leave. So it psychologically, it gets to you, cooped up.
Yes. I've written a lot about, COVID safety on sets. I haven't been on a set yet where they're, in this, how do you say this, in this COVID era. Just wondering, like, is there like an increase in like the production budget at all because of all the safety measures that you have to take into consideration? I was reading it's like up to 20%.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I mean, I'm not sure how much it was for us, but it was substantial, like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I know it's considerably more, or it was. I think it's loosened up a little bit now. But like, had we shot in the US with IATSE, with the unions, it would have been astronomical.
Yeah. And then the intimacy part, because there's been a lot about, like, people are talking a lot about intimacy coordinators. They've been around, but they become more and more popular. So can you talk about the ones that you guys had on set, what that was like, what it was like to have them there?
Yeah, it was the first time I had ever worked with an intimacy coordinator, and she was lovely. And to me, you know, especially, like, I think that it's an absolute must for a male director. As a female director, I feel like I'm a little bit more capable, but I still think that, you know, for a stunt scene, you would have a stunt choreographer, and for a dance scene, you would have a dance choreographer. And so I think for any movie where there's like significant intimacy scenes, I think it's a must. I mean, there is also, you know, if there's a kiss or a handhold, that's an intimate act, and I don't know about that. That's totally, you know, that's outside my range of expertise, I suppose, to decide what is or isn't appropriate. But for a movie like this, like, you absolutely have to have someone who's helping you coordinate things, because you can't just have actors show up on set and say, oh, okay, so just make out for a little bit and we'll film you. One, it doesn't look good, and two, it's very awkward. So I think being able to have that person who makes the actors feel really comfortable and seen and heard really helps. And that's always my goal too, with, you know, with intimate scenes, but also just emotional scenes. Anytime I'm working with actors, I think it's really important to have an open and close relationship with them, where they feel like they can express, you know, what they think about the script and also what they are comfortable with. But that intimacy coordinator also helps with that emotional or psychological side with them. So it's, you know, there's multiple things that they do in their jobs outside of just choreographing. They also provide kind of a, you know, a therapist role for the actor too.
Yes. And just to give the readers an idea of what a set like that looks like, how closed are those sets when you are shooting an intimate scene? Is it you, the intimacy coordinators, the actors, and just how many people are on a set like that?
As few as possible. So we actually didn't have our intimacy coordinator with us throughout the whole shoot. We had as few people as humanly possible. So the idea was, which it's a little bit easier in theory than in execution, but like, we all had little badges and different colored groups. And so, like, basically only the actor, the DP, me, and like a producer are allowed, and the AD are allowed on set really at any time during the pandemic. Like, we pretty much had a closed set the whole time as much as we could. But definitely during those intimate scenes, I mean, there would be, you know, a handful of people, as few as possible, you know, the absolute bare bones. And the people that were there, you know, unless they needed to have their eye on the camera, like the sound guy, the boom guy, he's got to be there holding the mic, but he's like, you know, he's not watching it, like, because that's awkward. Even I actually, you know, we would put up a privacy screen so that anyone that has to be on set is still outside of the actor's vision.
I find that really interesting. And also, gosh, I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, the recasting. So I guess because of COVID, there were a couple of recasts.
Yeah, there's a lot of recasts.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit, if you can elaborate on that?
Yeah, so it wasn't my intention originally to recast everyone, and I think ultimately it turned out for the better, because I think it kind of set a new tone for the project, which doesn't feel like a sequel, I don't think, so much as kind of a reboot. But it wasn't my intent going into it, but I think one person was pregnant, and another person, you know, didn't want to go to Bulgaria, and another one was afraid of the pandemic, and, you know, for all of these reasons, people got recast, or budget reasons. I don't know. There were, you know, various things that came up. And we ended up with a whole new cast. I mean, except for Luis and the 2 kids, it's all brand new.
Yeah, and I think I have one more last question, then we have to wrap. So you did 2 movies back to back, and you still have 2 to go. So do you have any downtime? Because I know that it took 5 months to shoot, and you were so busy. So if you can talk about your free time.
Yeah, in my free time, I ride horses, which is like my real passion. It's funny, like for so long, my whole life was around movies. And now that I'm like able to get that off the ground, it's like only once I shifted my focus to something outside of that like the desperation stopped, and then I got after. But yeah, I don't have, a ton of free time. And I'm working on lots of other projects, because you kind of have to in this business. Like, I don't trust that anything is happening until it's actually underway or until it's wrapped. Like, that's when I know, okay, that project is happening. But I don't like to count my chickens until they hatch. So I have a lot of projects going at the moment, that whichever one goes first, that's the next one. But then putting the finishing touches right now, I'm still actually working on After 4. We're doing music and sound right now. So I'm technically still working on these projects.
Great. Well, they gave me the wrap. Thank you so much for answering all my questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. You too.
Bye.